Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons Dungeons and Dragons miniature partner, WizKids, canceling the Exandria Unlimited Calamity box set, and both in 2024, and also canceling the Critical Role Shade Mother box set, and saying, "Hey, we took your orders, we took your money. Now we're giving your money back, and we're telling you never going to get these sets. They are canceled, right? Like done, right? And not just like James Gunn canceled, like you're back now and you got a Disney contract, canceled, right? Like, yeah, okay. These are never coming out, right? So WizKids comes along and they cancel this, and I want to talk. So first of all, I keep talking about this because this is the most important historical event on intellectual property that happened in December of 2024. It's a major big deal, right? All right, and the reason why is it asks this question: why? Why are we arriving here, right? And I think the answer goes back to Teos Abadia. So Teos Abadia, absolutely brilliant. He is Teos Abadia is the the wisest, most accurate predictor, the wisest D&D commentator, and the most accurate descriptor of Dungeons and Dragons today. He's really smart. So he recently was talking about D&D Bologna, and I want to talk about. So basically, I am convinced that this cancellation was a clarion call from WizKids saying, "Hey, the whole world needs to understand this. We carry the Dungeons and Dragons miniatures license, and if you get in bed with Dungeons and Dragons and you're doing business with Dungeons and Dragons, you better behave, okay? Because because Dungeons and Dragons is a rising tide. It is floating everyone's boat. And if you decide to go into competition against it, which Matthew Mercer's Critical Role did by announcing Daggerheart and saying, we are going to put out a competing product with the distinct possibility, right, of toppling Dungeons and Dragons because it competes in exactly the same space. Well, the whole point is Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property web has become so significant that this is no longer allowed. And I think that WizKids is the first Dungeons and Dragons partner that is sending a flag and saying, you don't F around. You do not FUFO. You do not F, you know, F, it's FAFO. F around, find out. You do not FAFO. You do not FAFO. You do not F around and find out, because there's stuff to be lost here. So Teos Abadia was recently talking about D&D Bologna, right? And he explained, Dungeons and Dragons Bologna is the high watermark of the Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property. And the reason why was your aunt bought D&D Bologna, right? There was literally Dungeons and Dragons licensed lunch meat, sliced lunch meat. That is absurd. Your aunt bought it, right? That's what he was saying, right? Like, he's like, every other tabletop role-playing game in the world was like, oh, hey, you want to play our Pathfinder game? And you're like, oh, thank you, Pathfinder buddy. I appreciate the invitation. Pathfinder, OSC, yeah, Starfinder, Last Caravan, yeah, OSR, Indie, blah, 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 right? Dungeons and Dragons is the only one, right, where your aunt, comes home from the grocery store and goes, you play Dungeons and Dragons, right? And you're like, yeah, I do. I play a halfling, gnome, and then you're going for your bag. She's like, no, shut. I saw your D&D at the grocery store. What's Dungeons and Dragons doing at the grocery store? And both you and her now have a conversation about Dungeons and Dragons with your aunt. Well, your aunt don't play Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like, you understand what I'm saying here? And so he explained that this is the high watermark. This is the high watermark of Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property, right? Until 2024. We have a new high watermark, okay? And it literally involves the government, right? And that is stamps, right? Like stamps. This is every stamp collector in the world right now is getting Dungeons and Dragons stamps. And the reason why is they are part of an extremely rich governmental US government history, right? But many stamp collectors collect stamps. Oh, get this, it's not just in the US. They're actually doing British stamps as well. The Queen's face is on Dungeons and Dragons stamps. Do you understand this? Right? So this is a new watermark, right? And what WizKids is saying is you don't just throw off some D&D competitor because you were angry, right? You can if you're Bob in his garage in Idaho, right? But if you're Matthew Mercer and you have real scale and real celebrity and real momentum, you don't FAFO, right? You don't come at the king, right? You don't, whip yours out and come for the king. You don't, right? And the reason why is there's ramifications to it. And I think WizKids is the first one saying, listen. There's Dungeons and Dragons and everything on it is real, right? Lego, millions, right? Stamps, millions, right? Blockbuster films, hundreds of millions of dollars. Pay Chris Pine $11 million. Dungeons and Dragons is not FAFOing. You understand that? We are not messing around. There's millions of dollars. Now, if you want to come at Dungeons and Dragons, fine, but you better be Bob from the garage, right? Yes, get yourself over onto itch.io. Get yourself over on DriveThruRPG and throw out some scrub heartbreaker, right? But if you are actually Matthew Mercer and you want to stay in the celebrity lane, you want to stay where the millions of dollars are, you don't putz around and use the same designer who delivered Candela Obscura stillborn, right? No FAFO, right? If you want to FAFO, get your scrub butt, get your scrub idea, get your scrub game over into the OSR or the indie. Don't do it if you're actually in the court of the king, right? Because it's rebellion. And this is where it really is fascinating. This is the first time, right, where WizKids is saying we are a community of creators for Dungeons and Dragons. And we do not, right? We do not allow FAFOing. We do not allow the king to get pushed off the hill, right? Not by somebody who's in the court, right? And so, and Matthew Mercer is now, in my humble opinion, finding out that there are very real consequences to FAFOing, right? He FAFO'd, and now he's finding out, right? He FA'd, and now he's finding out. He F'd around, and now he's finding out, right? They're like, hey, you think we're going to keep your two scrub little, box sets when we got Nulzer's miniature, marvelous miniatures, hundreds of product SKUs for your two little jank nothings, right? You're either in the court or get yourself outside this courtyard and start picking wood in the forest with everybody else who publishes their junk on itch.io. And by the way, I got a game on itch.io. But compared to D&D, it's junk, right? Like, nobody cares about it, right? So every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.